Hello, Chris from Channel X TV here. Delighted to be with Tony from Fruugo today. Hello, Tony, and how are you?
Hey, Chris, great to see you. Great to be with you again.
So, for those that maybe have heard the name Fruugo but don't know too much about it, tell us a bit about the Fruugo marketplace and what makes you different to other marketplaces.
So Fruugo is a technology business that helps retailers reach a global audience. We take data that they have as a byproduct of their domestic e-commerce businesses, whether they're trading on marketplaces or through their own website, and we internationalize that data for them. So we translate it, we reprice it, and then we undertake marketing of their products in all of the countries that they tell us they can ship products to. We generate the traffic for them, we send them to a Fruugo website, that's the Fruugo marketplace, and then we allow those shoppers to transact on our platform. We screen for fraud, we optimize for local payments. We do all of that for free because we just charge a commission to the retailer when we send them an order for them to fulfill. So there's effectively no cost to come onto Fruugo. As a retailer, you would simply pay a fees based on the orders you receive. So we essentially make going global simple.
Yeah, so this is really interesting because everyone on other marketplaces has gone through the pain of translation and localization and the difference between a hood and a bonnet on a car and currencies. And it sounds like you're doing all the hard work for them.
Yeah, so the way we think about this is that a retailer that is used to shipping parcels to their local customers of their own country, can use Fruugo to reach customers all over the world, but the process for them should be fairly similar. So we give them the order details, and if they're shipping into the European Union, which has tax consequences, then they use something called our IOSS number. Sorry to jump into jargon straight away, but it's important. But effectively, what that means is the parcel clears customs, and the customs authorities know that tax has been paid on that order, and that Fruugo is collecting the tax and remitting it to the tax authorities for the retailer. So the retailer doesn't have to worry about any of that. All they need to do is put the stuff in the box, put the label on the box, and ship it out through whichever carrier they're using to get stuff out of the country.
Sounds really good. But what I really want to dig into today is kind of specialist retailing, because it's relatively easy if you're selling mainstream products and there's huge demand, but specialist products, normally the demand is spread out a bit more. But before we dig into it too far, can you tell me what are some of the most unusual items you've ever seen sold on Fruugo?
Well, Fruugo is a mirror on online shopping, really. So we sell what people buy online: clothing, footwear. That's our biggest category, followed by health and beauty, and home and garden. So, and after that, it's a long tail: toys, electronics, household goods. If a retailer can put it in a box and ship it, we can sell it, and essentially, therefore, we sell all sorts of stuff. When the pandemic struck, one of our retailers that was concentrating on selling perfume, which is largely medicinal alcohol based, discovered that they could turn their machines to the task of creating hand sanitizer, and all of a sudden they had an enormous business on their hands, and we facilitated the export of a lot of hand sanitizer to countries all over the world. More recently, the war in Ukraine has caused some demand in East European countries for various supplies, from spare parts for repairing cars to first aid kits. So yeah, all sorts of things can be sold on Fruugo.
So this is really interesting. And can you tell me a little bit about why cross-border is so powerful for specialist retailing? Why should these retailers consider selling overseas?
Well, I think this is really a story of the evolution of retail. So once upon a time, you had a shop and you sold to the people that walked past that shop. And if you wanted more sales, you opened more shops so that you could expose your products and your brand to a larger number of potential buyers. And that was, a footfall-based method of growth. Then the internet's come along and all of a sudden made online shopping practical. So a retailer that was previously relying on opening shops to reach an audience could now use digital media to do the same thing. And cross-border is simply an extension of that same logic, which is to say, if you have reached a larger audience than you could through physical retail by selling online domestically, then you can reach billions of potential consumers if you extend that to selling cross-border. And arguably, the more niche your offer, the stronger the reason for doing this, because the people that are shopping online are nowadays typically using search engines, and they are increasingly using what's known as long tail search queries to find the things they're looking for. So they will construct relatively sophisticated descriptions of the item they're looking for, obviously in their own native language. And what the search engines are really good at is pairing that purchase intent with items that have been placed into the Google Merchant Centers that power systems like Google Shopping. And so if you're a retailer of a specialist product and you've got a customer somewhere in the world looking for that specialist product, the search engines will pair that up.
And that makes sense, because I'm guessing the more specialist the product, the smaller the pool of potential buyers in the UK that may one day look for that product. But by selling worldwide, there may be dozens or even hundreds of people suddenly looking for that product that aren't based in the UK.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is that people in different countries are more similar than they are different. So although we've got many different cultures and skin colors and so forth, at the end of the day, if you've got a drafty door, you want a draft excluder. And if you've got a sink that has got a leaking tap on it, you need a part for your tap. Those needs are very generic, and people will go onto a website or onto their phone and they'll search for the thing they're looking for, or more often search for a solution to the problem they've got. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of the products we sell are not branded, shall we say. At the end of the day, if you need a cable to connect your laptop to a device, to a monitor or a TV, you don't really care what brand it is. You just need a thing that will do that job. And so the Fruugo platform, which is providing this technology, this brilliant technology that creates this ability for retailers in one country to reach shoppers in many countries, over 40 countries. It's simply a mechanism for allowing those people to find each other.
And you've mentioned search engines quite a lot, and the pairing up the buyer with the product. Can you dig a little bit deeper into sort of digital marketing and how to drive clicks and conversions? And I know Fruugo are largely doing that for the retailer. So specifically from the angle of the retailer, what information should they be giving Fruugo to allow you to drive these clicks? Is there anything that they could generally be doing better, or are they doing a pretty good job already?
So I would give the same advice to a seller listing on Fruugo as I would to pretty much any digital retailer, because the determinants of success are common. And those are: is your product well described? Have you got descriptive copy and a product title that is a good representation of the item that you're selling? Is it competitively priced? Is your shipping competitively priced? And often it makes sense to incorporate some of the cost of shipping into the selling price of the item, because customers will often balk at the idea of paying £6.95, say, for shipping. But if the product was £3 more expensive and the shipping was £3.95, they might well be a lot happier. That's just a perversity of the way people tend to buy online. And the images need to be good, and the data needs to be sort of well structured so the search engines can find it. If you can do those things, then you're well set for success. But I am constantly amazed at how little attention a lot of retailers give to what I consider to be the basics for digital retail.
So important message there to get the product data correct. Now, can you give us, I'd love to hear kind of a couple of examples of specialist retailers that have been really successful, that kind of other retailers could emulate their success?
Well, there are thousands of retailers on Fruugo, and on average, 98% of the orders we generate for them are export. So whilst it varies a bit by country, so UK retailers, for example, we tend to have a slightly stronger proportion of domestic sales for those sellers than sellers in other countries. But in general, what we're doing is creating export demand, and that's generally speaking orders that those retailers would not otherwise get. So they're paying us a fee, but that's a fee based on a value transaction that wouldn't otherwise occur. And examples of that include a company called Sellotronic, who sell games and gaming equipment, who have found a European and indeed worldwide audience for their products. Another example is a US retailer of sporting goods that is a category specialist. They sell basketball and American football products and are deeply specialized in that category, sell very well in the United States, but had no ability to export before they found Fruugo. They're called Forza Sports. There's a company in the UK called Bell Tent who make fantastic sort of TP type tents that were very popular in lockdown, but have accelerated their sales into Europe as lockdowns have finished, and there's been something of a travel boom and sort of a propensity for people to want to go and spend time outdoors and go camping. Finally, a company called UK Soccer Shop, which is a specialist in selling football kits and related products, have found that whilst their core audience is the UK, they've built a really nice additional sales channel by using Fruugo to sell their products all over Europe.
Great, thanks for that. Some really interesting businesses there. I've got one final question, which kind of touches on what you've already said about car parts going to Ukraine during the war out there. Can you give some insight onto sort of how retailers can capitalize on different global trends that are going on? Is there anything they should be doing specifically when they spot an opportunity, or is just having a product on Fruugo and potentially other platforms enough in itself?
The short answer is the latter. Being present is what matters, and being because the Fruugo systems are very, very dynamic to changing patterns of demand. Another example that springs to mind is when the TV program Squid Game first launched on Netflix. All of a sudden there was massive demand in all sorts of countries for that branded product, and that's very difficult to anticipate, but we were able to connect the people who had stock with that consumer demand wherever they were. Another example is a TV program in Austria, which was a sort of consumer affairs program that did a article or a focus on a particular vitamin supplement and its potential for providing some medicinal benefit. And there was a sort of a paper published in Austria on this subject. All of a sudden, search for that particular vitamin spiked, and the sellers who had the product happened to be in the UK, and their UK sales just didn't change at all. But all of a sudden, they were selling tens of thousands of pounds of this stuff to customers in Germany and Austria who had seen that TV program.
I could just imagine the sort of reaction in the office when they saw all these sales coming from Austria. Like, what's happening? What have we done?
Well, I mean, I do that at a global scale. I look at our sales patterns and go, what the hell's going on there? Why is that spiked? Or why have we suddenly seen a surge in demand in a particular place? And it can quite often be because something has happened locally that in the UK we're unaware of. And all of a sudden, demand suddenly occurs online, and you realize that actually there's a vast reservoir of demand going on all the time, about which we sort of are participating in to a very small degree. But for some of the retailers who are on Fruugo, it can be transformational, because a lot of our retailers are relatively small businesses, and can suddenly see their businesses turbocharged because they just happen to have a product that goes into high demand in a particular part of the world. And I think that's the sort of the key message, which is that what's going on in the world is that physical retail is migrating to e-commerce, as we all know. That's, the migration to digital retail is an enduring trend. But within the growth in e-commerce are two powerful factors. One is the growth of marketplaces. Marketplaces are growing far faster than any other form of e-commerce. And secondly, cross-border. And cross-border is growing faster than marketplaces in general. So if you want to be at the epicenter of the growth engine of the 21st century, then be on a cross-border focused marketplace.
Fascinating information today, Tony. And I've just got one final question, which is, if someone wants to talk to you more or find out how to sign up on Fruugo, where can they go for more information?
The simple answer is sell.fruugo.com. That's our retailer-focused website, and there's a very easy to fill in form on there to register interest, and one of the Fruugo team will be in touch.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today, Tony.
Thanks, Chris.